This is number 2 in a series of videos around criticisms of benefit cost analysis. And this time I'm going to look at the criticism that there's too much uncertainty around a project to do a good benefit cost analysis, so you just shouldn't do a benefit cost analysis. So let's start by acknowledging that actually uncertainty around benefit cost analyses is often an issue. Often we don't know all of the information that we would like to have to complete the benefit cost analysis. And there's all sorts of things that we might be uncertain about. For example, we might have a project that is trying to protect the environment by doing certain actions, and we don't know how much protection we would get as a result of doing those actions. We might have an idea, we can make a judgment, but we don't know very precisely. Or maybe a project involves trying to change people's behaviour in some way for health benefits or environmental benefits or something. And it's notoriously difficult to predict exactly how people will respond behaviourally to any particular project. So it's realistic to identify uncertainty or lack of information or knowledge gaps as a common issue that occurs with benefit cost analysis. But the question is, what should we do about that? Does it actually mean that we should not do a benefit cost analysis? Well, in part, I think it depends on what we would plan to do instead of doing a benefit cost analysis. And there are at least a couple of options there. One option is that instead of doing a benefit cost analysis, we put things on hold for a while and we go about collecting more information so that the information gaps, or at least some of them, that we have are being filled, or at least they're not as serious as they were. That might include commissioning new research, or maybe doing a review of past projects or policies that are similar to the one that we're currently thinking about. And if we did that, we could at some future time come back and make a fresh decision about this project or policy with better information. And at that point, perhaps we could do a benefit cost analysis then, but we're saying we won't do it now because we're not ready to. We want to get some more information. I'm quite comfortable with that as an approach. In fact, I think it's probably an approach that should be taken more often than it is when we do have a lot of uncertainty. So that's the first option. The second option is to make a decision anyway without seeking better information and without doing a benefit cost analysis. Inevitably, this would be a somewhat qualitative, subjective decision about the project or policy, and maybe you're doing that unsupported by any sort of formal systematic analysis, or maybe you would do it based on a weaker, less informative or information risk type of analysis. But either way, you're doing it without doing a benefit cost analysis. This one I'm not so convinced about. And the reason is that all of the information that's required to do a benefit cost analysis is, of course, relevant, highly relevant to good decision making. So if you decide to proceed with the decision without that information, then the problem of a lack of information isn't solved. You're just ignoring it or maybe burying it. So this isn't a solution to the problem, it's just sort of putting the problem out of your mind and probably making quite a poor decision. Well, okay, so it's all very well for me to say that, but can you even do a benefit cost analysis? And is there any point when the information is so uncertain? So I want to present to you now a number of arguments for the side of that argument that yes, there is a point. It can be a very good idea to do a benefit cost analysis even when there's a lot of uncertainty. The first reason is that doing a benefit cost analysis can help you organise your thoughts and ask the right questions about a project. Questions about all aspects, the benefits, the costs, the risks, behaviour, timing. All of those things that you need to think about to make a good decision are essential components of a BCA, and the whole structure and the systematic approach will help you work through them all and come to the best decision that you can with the available information. Another reason for doing a BCA despite high uncertainty is that it encourages you to seek out the best available information. You know, if you're doing a BCA, you've got a clear set of information needs, and you can work through that list of information needs to fill in the gaps that you have to do the BCA. And not doing a BCA means that your decision is probably going to be even more uncertain in the decision than it would be if you had one, and more uncertain than it needs to be. So there's a second reason. Third reason is that a BCA requires you to properly define the project. You can't really do a BCA unless you've clearly defined what the project or policy is, because without that you can't quantify the benefits or the costs or the risks. You can't really identify who will contribute resources or time or support to the project, and you can't identify who will benefit. They're all things you need to do a BCA, but they're all things you need to make a good decision about any particular project or policy as well. So there's the third reason. The fourth reason is that by doing a BCA, you can more easily assess whether the uncertainty matters at all. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe when you've done a BCA and looked at variations in the numbers, you find that no matter, pretty much within reason, no matter what numbers you include, you always get a favourable result for a project. Or, conversely, you always get a highly unfavourable result. In either of those cases, you can proceed with the decision despite the fact that there's still a fair bit of uncertainty, because it's either going to be good or better or even better, or, you know, conversely bad or even worse. It's not going to sort of flip-flop between being a very good or a very bad project. Now, you might not get that, but if you do, you can know that you can proceed despite the uncertainty. So that's a great consequence of doing a BCA. And the other thing you can do in this regard is identify which uncertainty matters. Varying the numbers that go into a BCA can help you decide which of the variables that you don't know about are the ones that would be most beneficial to learn more about. So that in itself is a very helpful piece of information to inform future decision making. The next reason for doing a BCA is to support adaptive management. Adaptive management is an approach where you proceed to implement your project or policy, but you do it in a way that maximises your learning about how that policy or project is performing, the limitations of it, which aspects are working, which aspects are not, what could be improved. So if you're doing it that way, then you're collecting new information as you go. And as your knowledge about the project's performance improves, you could revise the BCA that you did at the start and revisit the decisions that you're making over time, decisions about the project design or decisions about whether to do the project at all. Okay, so the BCA can be sort of embedded within the process of doing adaptive management and really strengthen and support that process. BCA will also help you deal in a structured, systematic way with knowledge gaps. For example, within the BCA approach, you could record what the knowledge gaps are. You could provide information to decision makers about the information quality overall. You could conduct break-even analysis or sensitivity analysis to assess the robustness of the BCA results, or to identify which variables matter and you should be looking at collecting better information about. So you can see there's a whole host of reasons why observing that there's high uncertainty about the inputs needed for a BCA is not a very good reason for arguing that you should not do a BCA. In actual fact, I would say that when uncertainty is high, the case for doing a benefit cost analysis is even more compelling. If you found this topic interesting, if you're involved in benefit cost analysis or learning about it, or interested to learn more about it, could I encourage you to look at my micro-credential course called Applied Benefit Cost Analysis. This is an online course with a mixture of pre-recorded and live elements. It runs for 12 weeks. It can be done as a standalone course in itself or as part of a master's course at the University of Western Australia. To do this course, you don't need any existing economics background, and the experience of students who've done the course has been extremely positive. For example, this is feedback from one student who found it to be a fantastic course, by far the best I have done. So check it out at this website, appliedbca.org, and I hope to see you when the course runs next.